He is a man of multiple personalities. He performs all over the nation and the world, and in many personages. But his very, very favorite is Frances Marion. Now tonight he has cajoled Linzy Washington to be Frances Marion's slave Oscar, whom he taught to called Buddy. And the setting is after the war, Frances Marion and Oscar are reminiscing. We have no idea who they will reminisce about or who may show up. But for your pleasure, we have Frances Marion and Oscar.
Came up here, Oscar. Look, Oscar. I didn't know those people gonna be here. But I would, I'm just expecting Peter already to come.
But he's on his way.
That's what I'm.
Yeah, he's on his way.
And I got this. Yes, sir. I don't think I'm gonna wear that. No, you put it up. You put it up. You put it up. All right. Peter's got to ride 30 miles on his horse to get here tonight.
That's quite a ways.
Yeah, and he's not going to be wearing a coat. You don't think?
You probably have one of those saddle bags.
Well, we'll let him keep it. We'll let him keep it. But did I tell you why he was coming?
No, he didn't.
Well, he's trying to write a book. And he's trying to write a book about us in the war. And he's already done a good bit of it. And he wants me to sort of check with him to make sure that what he says about some of these people, you'll remember some of these people. And he's going to check with me about it. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. I'm gonna sit you in the chair. I'm over 60 years old. But I'm not telling you anything, Oscar. You're older than I am. You always been older, I am. But what he wants to talk about? He talk about some of those generals we fought with.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm gonna start off making sure he's got it right about that fellow Gates, General Horatio Gates.
You dealt with him.
I dealt with him. Yeah. Well, what I did was I got out of his presence as soon as I could.
He's a knowledgeable man.
Well, I know about him, and he was a very, very bad general. He just was no good at all. No good at all. But he thought he was good, and that's a bad thing. Some folks don't know how bad they are. But I did go to, I think I told you this before, but I want to make sure that Peter gets this straight. I reported to General Gates. I think the date was 1780. Now, we'll have to check on that. Up at Camden. And I said to him, I wanted a command. I was already a colonel in the South Carolina regiment. But that's when I had broken my leg, my ankle. Yeah, when I jumped out that window. And for a while, I couldn't walk. They carried me on a litter back up at Pond Bluff, and that's where we met you. And you remember how we went on back up to North Carolina because Charleston surrendered. That's another thing I got to get him straight about that General Lincoln. General Lincoln. In the first place, General Lincoln weighed about 300 pounds.
Small man.
Yeah. Well, he's from up north somewhere, but we brought him down here and we fed him some potatoes and some sausage, and now he's weighing over 300 pounds. But he backed into Charleston, where there was no way for him to get out.
No way.
No way for him to get out. And the British had more people than he did. And instead of trying to get out while he could, he backed into there and he finally had to surrender. I would have had to surrender too, except for the broken ankle. Yeah, and that's when we went up to North Carolina, you remember. Then I came back to see General Gates, and you weren't with me then. I forgot where you were, Oscar. But I didn't, there were but about 15 of us, and I went up to the general and I said, I want to command him, I'm a colonel. And he looked at us, and he looked at this sort of hat that I wore, and he thought I was nothing. He thought I was nothing. And so he said, well, why don't you just go down there the way you want to and take charge of something? And I said, well, the Williamsburg militia needs a command.
You in charge of something?
Yeah.
You wasn't appointed to something?
Well, he said I could go down and take charge of that militia.
Oh, okay.
And that's what it did. Came down to the King's Tree. And he fought the battle, and he lost. He lost worse. You know, the first of that year, we had a surrender in Charleston. We lost that precious city to the British. And in August of that year, it wasn't but about 6 months later, we lost this terrible battle up at Camden. Lost practically all our men. And those that weren't killed and scattered got captured. And that's where I started out. Because I heard about the captives. And they were bringing those captives, there were about 300 of them, 250, something like that. Bringing them down from Camden, don't carry them to Charleston, you know, and maybe take the parole or put them in jail. And I got what men I could out of Williamsburg. There were about 50 of us. And we surprised them at Nelson's Ferry. We stopped them at Nelson's Ferry. We scattered those British. They didn't have any idea we went anywhere around. And you know what, Oscar? That's how come we won as much as we won, because we surprised them. Yeah. And they didn't know what kind of people we were. Well,
Bulls out of nowhere.
yes, sir. Yeah. And I learned to attack at night. British, they had their supper, you know, and they thought that was enough. And they I don't know what they're doing. They're dreaming about girls or something, but they was there all night long, and that was the time to hit them. And we did that over and over again. But that General Gates, I got to make sure. But General Gates, and you'll remember the man who replaced him. That was General Green. You remember General Green?
Philly.
Yeah. Tall, good-looking man. He's from up north. As a matter of fact, he and George Washington were very good friends. Yeah, he's a Yankee. Yeah, you know, we all Americans together. But General Green came down, and he's a decent man. Now, he was in the Continental line. He's a general of the whole continent. And I was a colonel. And I was a colonel in South Carolina until finally they made me a general. But I was always a colonel in South Carolina. And General Green treated me like I knew what I was doing. And he over and over again told me to go ahead and fight like I wanted to fight. And sure enough, we did good. Occasionally General Green got it wrong. That fellow Sumter. You remember me talking about him? Yeah. Well, if you forgot him, you're lucky. Why don't you just keep forgetting? But he told General Green one time that I had a lot of horses. And you remember how hard it was. We had more men than we had horses. And most of the time, the men, it was their own horse. And every time we could capture horses, you know, we were doing great. But I just barely had enough to go around. But General Sumter, he told Green I had extra horses. And so General Green wrote and asked me for horses. And I got mad with him, and that was the time. Maybe you remember. I sat down right next to an oak stump that we had cut across. And I got out paper and my pencil, and I tried to write. I never was too good at writing. I better knew it writing, but I ain't very good at writing. But I tried to write him the best I could. And I ended up saying to him, I don't have any horses. I'm having a hard enough time. You don't ever send me any help. The only time I get gunpowder is when I capture it from the British. And the only reason we got guns to go around is because I've captured them from the British. The only reason we got swords for our cavalrymen is because I have gone around and got all the saws from all the farmers round about. By the way, I give them a receipt every time I get one. I'm not taking those. Always, I said I was gonna pay for it. Well, I finally said to General Green, if that's the way he felt tonight, that I just quit. And I never did show you this letter I got back from General Green. But he really got after me for saying that, but in a nice way, in a nice way. And he said, look, I've come all the way down here from Rhode Island, and I'm helping you fight to free your country. But it's your country. You live in this country. And you can't tell me about sacrifice, because I've sacrificed myself. And furthermore, he sort of eased up a little bit. He made me be ashamed of myself. I tell you, another man I want to make sure that Peter gets right. I'm not sure Peter's going to write a good book, you know.
That's why he's going to ask you to advice.
Well, maybe my advice ought to be to throw it in the fireplace. But, yeah, no, he's coming that far. I got to do that. I got to do that. I don't know how I'm on. I guess you remember, he's Colonel O'Reilly, Colonel Peter O'Reilly. He's the best cavalry man I had. You give Peter O'Reilly a few men, all of whom are on horseback, and some of whom are armed, and all of them got swords. And you give him a task to do, he does it. He does it. You count on him. Yeah, right. And if he runs into trouble, he manages his own trouble. He doesn't come right back to me and ask me what to do. He decides what to do, so I like him. Now this other fellow that Peter had a lot of trouble with was Hezekiah Mayhem. He's a colonel too. He lived down in Berkeley County, you know. Peter O'Reilly, he lived up in the PD. And that's where I feel more at home, in the PD. But Hezekiah Mayhem, a tall man. Tall. You know, he must be 10 inches taller than I am. Yeah. Well, and he's got a lot of brain, and he's read a lot of books. And he's rich. He got a big plantation. I don't know how many servants he must have over 100 servants. Yeah. And he loves to read books. And where I really got to admire him was that time when we were reducing Fort Watson. You know, the British had built that stronghold up there, we're calling a fort up on the hill on top of the Indian Mountain. And they were shooting down at us. And they had the abatis. Oscar, you know what a abatis is? A abatis. You and most people don't know what that is. All right. Abatis is when you chop down trees and lay them log upon log in a great big nest, so that if the enemy is charging you, one of the things they got to do is get through those trees. And that'll take them time, you know, and they get tangled up in the tree. You shoot them when they're tangled up. Well, that's what it's a trap. You go right in there and suddenly you just left for them to shoot. They take target practice at you. And so I looked at that and I said, man, we're not going to be able to charge up that hill because we're ready to shoot right down on them. But we couldn't shoot them because they were hiding behind the wall. And if we were up there, we could shoot down on them. But we couldn't shoot up because the bullet hit the wall. And so I decided we'd starve them out, and that wasn't working. And we knew that some more troops were coming down from Camden. And I was about to give up. And Hezekiah Mayhem came in and said, let's build a tower. And well, I didn't know what the man was talking about. But he had read in some of his books about the Greeks and how when they had trouble with the enemy being higher up, they built a tower so that they would be higher. We're building a tower and the British shooting at us. But Hezekiah Mayhem said he knew how. And so I said, okay, let's do it. I sent around all the area around about, and I got every saw that any farmer had in the whole of the Berkeley area down here. And we sawed down pine trees from way back yonder. British didn't know what we were doing. got those pine trees felled, and we dressed them and notched them, and then in just one night, Hezekiah Mayhem built a tower with a sort of a floor up near the top. And we put our sharpshooters up there. And the next morning when the British waked up, instead of them looking down at us, we were looking down at them. And as soon as they popped their head up, we get those sharpshooters. And they quit. They quit. That's the first time anybody in the South, any American patriot in the South, had captured a fort. You know, we'd won a few little battles, but we captured a fort. Absolutely. But after that, General Greene says to me to organize things, so I sort of organized, and I said to Peter O'Ree, you get a cavalry unit. And I said to Hezekiah Mayhem, you get a cavalry unit. You can recruit up in the PD, and you recruit down here in Berkeley. But there were more men in Berkeley. And Mayhem, and Mayhem got more men. And General Greene wrote to him direct, and didn't write to Peter direct, and Mayhem tried to order Peter around. And Peter popped off at him. And they brought it to me, and I told them to settle it. They didn't settle it, so I quarreled it both. In fact, that's how come Peter and I got to be enemies. We were real enemies. He finally quit on me. He said he was sick. Yeah. Want me to take his side? Yeah. Well, Mayhem, I would say to Mayhem, you got to obey O'Ree. And he said, no, I'm a continental officer. You know, I'm not just a state, just not South Carolina, I'm continental. He wasn't continental. But that's what he said. Finally, he quit too. And he went back to he'd been elected to the legislature. He went to the legislature, and I was scared that he'd get in the legislature and pass some laws that would hinder me. So I ran for the legislature too, and I got elected. Those guys were mad as they could be. I even had to threaten to court-martial. I don't know if I could have court-martialed my friend Peter, but that's what it said. Well, I had to. Well, since the fight was over, Peter and I began making up. But I'm not sure what he's going to put in that book about me. And I want to make sure that he's got the truth, the real truth. I'll tell you another thing I want too, you know, the fighting's over. The fighting's been over for, the fighting's been over 10 years. And it's time to forgive those people who we fought against. Right after the war, we singled out some people who had been Tories. And if they had left the state, hundreds have left the state. They left their houses. And so who's going to get the houses? Well, we took the houses and gave them away to soldiers. Sort of paid for the war. And so those people lost. But there were some people who had sided with the British who wanted to stay. And so the legislature said, in its wisdom, that the people who had really been bad, that we're going to take 50% of all their money. And we decided how much their land was worth, how much their servants were worth, how much their crops were worth, how much their houses were worth, how much their clothes were worth, how much their furniture was worth. And we added all that up and we said 50% of it. You sell it, give it to the state, or else leave. Well, some people did that. Well, some people we didn't say 50%. Some people we said 20%. But we amortized their property. And I thought that was enough of a penalty. But there's a whole lot of people who didn't want to do that. They didn't want to forgive. And Oscar, you and I've been through it so many times. We know about forgiving. You have to forgive. I've even forgiven you some of your cooking.
Give me a job.
I did it there. Well, you've been like a brother to me, Oscar. And I know that. You've been like a brother. I tell you how I got in trouble. There was one fellow up there in the PD. His name was Micajah Gainey, and he had been a mean man. And he had killed people that he didn't need to kill. You know, after the battle was over, sometimes people surrendered, he'd kill them anyway. But the war was over. And he still had his group up there that was giving us trouble. And word came to me that he was ready to change sides and to quit fighting. So I called him in. He came into my camp. And I said to him, I will forgive you, you know, if you will lay down your arm. And he agreed to do that. The men wanted to kill him. The men wanted to kill him. Well, no, our men wanted to kill him. Well, he's been killing us. And I said to him, you can't do that. You can't do that. And what Gainey said to me was, I took my commission from the British who were down in Charleston, and now I'm turning to the other side. And I need to go to Charleston in person and tell the commander down there that I was changing sides. And I said, all right. And my men didn't like that, you know, because we thought we'd never see that guy again. You know what? I don't know whether you remember this or not. He came back and he said he had resigned his commission with the Tories, and he was going to fight 6 months with us, and he did. He did. That was the way to do it. And I remember that other fella. His name was Jeff Butler. And Jeff Butler, he wasn't a soldier, he was a murderer. And we knew him by name. And he came in and said he wanted to surrender and switch sides. And I began to talk to him, and the men, they sent one of the lieutenants, Lieutenant Wilson. They sent Lieutenant Wilson to me and said, look, if you don't kill Jeff Butler, we will. So I called in my chief officers into my tent where I had Jeff Butler. And inside my tent, I said to the officers, we're going to save this man's life because he's going to change. And I said to those senior officers, you got to take him tonight when the men don't know about him and get him off to safety. And we did. I got a lot of criticism for that, and I don't know what Peter's going to say about it. But Peter's not too anxious to forgive people like I am. But we got to live together. Yeah. I'll tell you one last thing that I worry about. Is that no, that's not Peter.
That's some dust in some Washington.
Yeah, there's dust out there. I don't think that's Peter. Well, you know, this little house we're living in. You remember that other house we had before the war? It was a nice house, big house. Nice quarters out there for your people. And the British came in and they just spoiled everything. They took all the furniture and they took the rugs. They broke out the windows, you know, cut the doors down. Took off some of your people, by the way. Some of the service people wanted to go, and they took them. And only a few of you stayed with it. And so, you know, that's what it cost me to fight this war. We only fought about 2.5 years. And if anybody remembers me, and you later on, it's just because of 2.5 years. And yet we lived 60 years. Well, I hope that that's going to work out, that they will remember me soon enough. And we've come back and we've done pretty well.
Yeah.
Now,
Side up.
hey, what do you think he's going to say about me getting married?
Nice thing.
He might say that. I said, I didn't think I was going to get married. But you know, after the fighting was over, you know, General Greene and some of his Continental gentlemen, they actually took over Charleston. The British agreed to move out. It took 300 ships to get the British out of Charleston because they took a lot of Tories with them. And the Tories could take their belongings with them. They'd take trunks and packages and everything. And it took some of the servants with them too. 300 ships. So it took a month or so to get the British out after they agreed to go. But we agreed that they'd be gone by 10 o'clock one morning. And then in that afternoon, the Americans were going to move in. General Green's going to move in. And he came and asked me if I wanted to be in the parade. But he didn't come until the last minute. And I think he really didn't want me to be there. Well, you know, they had nice uniforms. And I had that uniform like the one you just hung up. But I didn't wear that very often. And we didn't look good, you know. The men didn't have good. You remember how they were. They didn't even look this good. And so we wouldn't have looked good in a parade. But that's not the reason. I don't believe I'm even going to tell Peter why. But General Green said I could be on his staff. And I told him thank you that I wouldn't do it. So you remember after our men didn't go into Charleston. The Americans went into Charleston and they took over the city. General Green did. He lived there with Governor Rutledge. Well, the ex-Governor Rutledge. He lived in Mr. Rutledge's house. But I went back up to Fair Lawn. That's a beautiful house. It used to belong to Lord Carleton. And I had made it the headquarters before. You remember that nice little kitchen area they had back in the back where you just ran like you were an emperor, man. You could cook. You could cook. Yeah, I didn't have to forgive you for that cooking. But I told the men farewell. And I came back up here to find this in such bad shape. And I wasn't thinking about getting married. But one of my nephews was thinking about getting married. Theodore. And every now and then he'd ride over there in Cordsville, and I'd go with him. And he decided he's going to get married. And he said to me, why don't you get married? I said, no, not me. But he asked me if I had noticed how my cousin, Mary Esther, every time I'd come into a room, she'd sort of light up. And every time I'd say something, she'd agree with me. And if I ever said anything that was lighthearted, she'd laugh. And so he said, why don't you marry her? And I said, and I think she told him that she hadn't gotten married because I hadn't asked her. Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, I ended up asking her, and she said, yeah. By the way, Theodore was going to get married in the morning, and I decided to get married that same day. We got married the same day. Yeah. And we moved back here, and Mary Esther, you know, Mary Esther, she's got a lot of resources. She got a lot of money. She's got servants. She's got furniture, and everything. And she helped me fix up the house. The house ain't very much now, but it's better than it was. Hey, isn't that him? Isn't that him? I tell you, I'm so old I can't see. Yeah, I think that's Peter. I think that's Peter. Wait, let me get up. Hey, has he got on his coat? Got on his uniform?
No, he have on. He's got a
Yeah, he don't have on his uniform. He don't have on his uniform. Well, let's stand out here on the porch.
Yeah.
Hello, friend.
How was you?
Hey, Francis, how are you, sir?
Billy, you're a
Oscar.
sight.
How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you.
You
Go
still
ahead,
taking care of this whole
Oh, yeah.
time?
Oh, you're a sight for sore eyes, man. A sight for sore.
You want to have a seat?
Yeah, come and
Have a seat.
you'll
Thank
take
you,
this seat
thank
back.
you. I don't want to take your seat.
No, go and have a seat.
Well,
I come over, you know I'm writing that book. And I
Yeah.
want to get it straight. But I do have some questions for you, Francis. I know you got the answers.
well, if I don't have, I'll make them up. What do you want?
And you know, every time I took notes, damned if you didn't send me the cavalry through some swamp, and my call ran, and so I'm having a terrible time reading it. But back, you remember at Waibu Swamp?
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember? You said, go ahead and take your cavalry down there and draw them guys up here, and way into them.
You didn't do that.
Well, I come back and said they ain't gonna work, and you said, go try it again.
Oh,
You
no.
damn near killed me.
Why didn't you do it? I just been telling that. Oscar, didn't I just tell you that when I told him to do something, he always did it? Yeah, see that?
See, but, yeah, well, I wanna talk a little bit about that.
All right, talk.
Yeah, let me
You mean
see.
you gonna write something about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna write about that. I mean, you led the man for what were we doing that? For 2 3 weeks you led that bread
Yeah,
around?
I did. That was a fun thing for us, you know. I enjoyed it. That Watson, he wasn't any better than Tarleton. He never could catch us, could he? He tried, he never could catch us.
And bridge after bridge, it was the same story.
Yeah.
You never learned.
Tell me, Peter, how you gonna spell Wiboo?
No, I was gonna spell it the right way, W-I-B-O-O.
Well, that's all right with me. I've never been very good on spelling anyhow. And that sounds like Wiboo.
Yeah. And then Jack's Creek. You remember that bunch of Jack's Creek? You remember them?
Well, which one was Jack's Creek now? Which
Jack's
one?
Creek, that was over there to the west of Waibu, out toward Richardson. Remember that time Tarleton come after us?
Yeah.
And you led him all the way to Ox Swamp, and you had your ambush set up there at Bimbo's Ferry, and then Rascal turned around and went away.
Turned around and went away. Now, I tell you, that was a sweet day, man. He turned around and ran away.
But that crowd there from Jack's Creek now,
That
what was
talk,
that cat?
I want you to get it straight about that Tarleton guy. In the first place, he's a good soldier. He's just on the wrong side in this war. But he was a good soldier. But he's mean, you know. And he loved being mean. And he did one thing, and I think maybe, now Oscar, you check and find out about it. I think he's copying it. He moved fast, you know. Well, you and I move fast, too.
Right.
That's one of the way to win. You win
Well, you
because
had
you're
that horse
surprised.
wall after Black Mingo couldn't keep up with you.
You see ball out in the pasture
Yeah.
game?
I thought maybe you wanted me to take him home with me.
No, I don't want you to take that horse. That's the best horse that God ever made. And I rode him for the rest of the war, and now, as a matter of fact, I can't ride much anymore.
But what's this? What a likeness of you. When did he have that made, Oscar? My goodness.
You didn't know what Oscar could do. I saw that thing, I thought it was a piece of cake that he had sort of carved up a little bit to make it look like that. But just between you and me, Peter, I never looked that good.
You said it, I didn't.
I speak the truth.
But, you know, I'm having to take time with names these days, and I'm trying to remember those guys out there at Jack's Creek, because they were a crew. Remember, you used to put them on the cannon once in a while. It seems like that one guy run around in a blue coat all the time. Fancy hat, though. Had the fanciest hat in the brigade. What was his name? I can almost see him going across there, out across your pasture now. What was that guy? Looks almost like a ghost going
Yeah,
across
I
there.
see him,
Oh,
I see him.
Dickie Felder, that Captain Felder. He made him a captain the other day.
That's one of the mistakes to make him a captain.
Yeah, that was about the only mistake. And then the 2 other guys he had there, Jenkins boys. One of them always wore a kilt, remember? They knew they were going to fight when they went out with that kilt.
You know, it's a good thing. It's a good thing we put these rosettes in our hats,
That's right.
because we could tell that there were friends who had the rosette. Those kilts, we usually shoot people in kilts. I'll tell you, it's good to have you here. It's good to have you.
You know, the other thing I was thinking about was there we were, that was before you got promoted, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they promoted you yet when we went up to North Carolina that time. Weren't we still both colonels? And we didn't have a shilling between us.
Didn't have it. That's exactly right. We didn't have much prospects either. And put this in your book. The only prospects we had was in our hearts and in our strength. And that was enough to get us on the right track.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I'm a colonel now in the Continental Line.
Right.
They made me that after the war was over. Congress did. I was right pleased. They made me a full colonel in the Continental Line. But then they made 26 other people brigadier generals that same day.
Aren't you the commander of Fort Johnson?
Well, that's what it says on the paper. And it was a nice thing. Incidentally, it was a nice salary. They were going to pay me 500 pounds a year. 500. Well, as a matter of fact, I went to Fort Johnson. I tried to get it organized. And then the legislature changed it 500 to $150. And that's quite a difference. But I never saw any money for that. I never saw any money for that. And so I resigned from that position and I came back up here. I didn't think that the government owed me anything. Back during the war, the reason we fought against the British is because we needed our freedom and our liberty. That's what I had on the helmet. You had one of those helmets, had liberty written on it. And that's what we fought for, and we got it. And that was that. And we didn't need to be paid extra for that. And so, all right, put that in the book. Put that in the book.
I will.
All right.
I want to talk about Fort Watson. I think that was great.
I think that was great.
I think, that was a turning point. People just don't realize it, Francis, but I think Fort Watson was a turning point in the Southern campaign down here.
Well, it showed the British that we could capture their fort.
And it put you blocking their supply lines.
We did that, and we made off with a lot of good supplies.
That's right.
But that's where Hezekiah Mayhem, that's where he got his fame. And I guess you got to put that in the book because it's the truth. But it also meant that he just thought he's better than the rest of them.
Well, yeah, but we all sort of mellow out as we get older, and we make up. And
No, I'll tell you what. Mayhem wrote me about, I guess it's been 6. How long ago? Been a year? Half a year? At any rate, a young officer had in the government, the war's over, an officer in the government was to serve a warrant on him for arrest. And he's a big man anyway, and he got furious about it, and he cuffed that guy around a little bit and tore the warrant up and made the guy chew and swallow the warrant. He made him eat the warrant. And of course now they're ready to put him in jail, and he wrote and asked me what he could do about that. And I wrote him back what I thought any good citizen would do. I said, submit yourself to the authorities. And once you've done that, and you've been through judgment, you can count on me. But not before then. Because he thought maybe Francis Marion and his name could have got him off from the law. Now, the law comes first. The law comes first. And friendship and help come later. Put that in the book.
I will.
How long is this book going to be?
It's going to be a big book. Now, one thing, maybe Oscar's heard rumors about this, but there's some story out there that you hear in the taverns that you were running from the British. Well, that already makes it suspect. But you come up on a fence, they had you cornered, and you on ball jumped a 7-foot fence.
7 foot?
7 foot. You ever heard that?
I ain't but 5.5 feet tall. Now, Oscar, was it 7 feet, Oscar?
Oh, thanks. Maybe 3 feet.
You're getting better. Put that in the book.
Okay.
But leave out the foot. Leave out how many feet it was. Just say I surprised the ball. No, say ball surprised the ball.
That's right.
Went right over that man. What a horse. What a horse.
What a cavalry guy I am. Look at, I've ridden 30 miles, and you look at my pants, and you wouldn't believe it. Would you?
You ain't got a spot on. Not a spot on. Well, and you're getting too soft in your old age, Peter.
That's right.
You gotta look dirty,
I'll tell you what, I'm a little thirsty, though.
How about that, Oscar? How about go make us some, maybe some soup or something, yeah? And while you do that, I'm gonna take him over there. Okay. Lead the way, sir. Thank you all very much. 1927. And it's a new song on Broadway.
There's an old man called the Mississippi, that the old man that I long to be. What does he care if the world's got trouble? What does he care if the land ain't a free? Old man river, that old man river, he must know something, but don't say nothing. He keeps on rolling, he keeps on rolling along. He don't plant potatoes, he don't plant cotton, but them there plants are soon forgotten. But old man river, that old man river, he just keeps rolling along. You and me, we sweat and strain, body all aching and racked with pain. Talk that bob, lift that baby, get a little drunk, and you'll land in the jail. I is weary and sick of trying, as tired of living and scared of dying. But old man river, that old man river, he just keeps rolling along.
That's what about Captain Felder? That mistake I made to make a captain out of this guy. I'm going to recognize Captain Felder for a minute. Have a seat, Peter.
Have a seat.
Carol, we need you up here too, Carol. We can't do this, by ourselves.
You want my light?
Behind every good man is a great woman. George wouldn't be where he is today if it wasn't for Carol. But we want just a small appreciation of the work well done and what he's done for Clarendon County, the Mural Society, and for the Fox Trail Symposium and all of this. Just a small token, Colonel. We want to give you a hatchet from the Jack Street community. Now, we know when he refers to the old battle axe, he's not talking about Carol.